Mula?
Ya, mungkin di stop dulu share screen-nya, nanti Bu Trin dulu untuk itu. Nanti Bu Henny dipersilakan.
Saya stop screen saya.
Ya, boleh.
Sekejap. Pak Suharyanto, ini saya yang mandu atau Bapak?
Ibu aja Bu, silakan Bu. Baik, silakan Bu Trinandari, silakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you keeping safe and well. It's a pleasure for me to be you here for collaborating teaching class. This is Mrs. Henny Hazliza binti Muhammad Tahir as a senior lecturer in University Teknologi Mara, Johor, Malaysia. Mrs. Henny Hazliza binti Muhammad Azir will be your guest lecture today. Hope you enjoy this section. Well, before we start our lesson today, I would like to welcome Mrs. Inu that will deliver to the opening speech, please. Mrs. Inu, opening speech, please. Silakan Bu Inu memberikan sepatah kata opening speech.
Sebentar, maaf Bu Trin. Baik, terima kasih Bu Trin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yang saya hormati Ibu Henny Hazliza Muhammad Tahir, kemudian yang saya hormati juga Ibu Trinandari selaku dosen auditing, Bapak Ibu dosen pengajar auditing, mungkin di sini juga ada Bapak Ibu pejabat ya di lingkungan UiTM dan Perbanas yang tidak bisa saya sebut satu-satu. Kemudian tentunya mahasiswa baik dari UiTM dan Perbanas Institut. Mohon maaf sebelumnya Ibu Rida Armeli selaku Ketua Program Studi tidak bisa hadir pada kesempatan ini karena ada keperluan. Jadi saya menggantikan. Mohon izin saya menyampaikan terima kasih atas kehadirannya dan tentunya kegiatan ini sangat kami dukung ya untuk kolaborasi antara UiTM dengan Perbanas Institut. Harapan kami semoga yang kita lakukan pada hari ini dan selanjutnya akan memberikan manfaat untuk kita semuanya. Kemudian mungkin setelah ada kegiatan auditing class yang kita laksanakan di sini, tentu akan kita tingkatkan lebih lanjut lagi untuk supaya bisa meningkatkan kolaborasi yang nantinya akan sangat bermanfaat khususnya buat Perbanas Institut. Demikian dari saya, lebih kurangnya minta maaf. Mungkin itu Bu Trin yang saya sampaikan. Waktu dan tempat saya kembalikan kepada Bu Trin. Terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Mrs. Inu. And next, please welcome Mrs. Henny Hazliza binti Muhammad Tahir will be your guest lecture today in subject completing audit. Please. This is Henny.
Ya. Dengar nggak suara saya?
Oh, dengar. Iya.
Jadi sudah boleh share screen-nya?
Sudah, silakan.
Okey, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum, selamat petang. Saya Henny dari UiTM Johor. Selamat petang kepada Ibu Inu Wijayanti, Ibu Trinandari dan juga yang lain-lainnya. Cuma seperti yang saya sebutkan tadi, kami di UiTM Johor sedang sibuk dengan audit campus daripada luar. Jadi kebanyakan pensyarah kami terlibat dengan audit. Cumanya tadi saya ada browse nama, saya jumpa nama Dr. Syahrul ada dalam sini lah. Okey. Yang lain saya rasa masih sibuk lagi dengan audit. Jadi setelah selesai mereka main lah. Okey. Jadi saya teruskan dengan saya punya kuliah. Jadi topik yang diberi pada saya adalah completing audit. Cumanya completing audit ni di Malaysia, here in Malaysia, the syllabus is spread out for 5 weeks for completing audit. So 5 weeks, so it takes about 1 week is equal to 3 hours. 5 weeks is equal to 15 to 20 hours untuk cover this chapter. While for Perbanas punya kelas, I have been asked to compress the topic into 2 hours. Jadi saya akan ambil mana-mana subtopik di dalam completing audit yang saya kira penting dan perlu untuk student tahulah. Jadi presentation saya menggunakan slido.com. Jadi kepada mahasiswa dan mahasiswi, kepada pelapar pelajar, kalau boleh saya mohon untuk scan QR code yang ada di screen dan akan ada tertera satu website. Kita akan communicate through the website lah. Whatever feedback and question dia akan terus terpapar di screen dan juga di handphone masing-masing. Okay. Jadi yang lain boleh pergi ke slido.com ataupun scan QR code. Kalau pergi ke slido.com akan ada kena masukkan kod inilah Perbanas. Okay. Dalam tu nanti akan ada quiz, akan ada macam-macam aktiviti dalam tu lah. Jadi student, saya minta untuk join menggunakan yang slido.com ya. Okay, seterusnya slide saya agak banyak. Jadi kita boleh, untuk student kalau ada nak terus tanya, boleh terus tanya. Boleh terus on your mic and ask me question during the lecture, I don't mind. And if you want to ask through via the chat box pun boleh. Okay, nanti saya akan go through the question later on. Okay, the topic given to me is completing audit. My name, senior lecturer. Saya juga involved dengan, I'm also the head of internal audit for UiTM Johor. So basically audit ni memang bidang lah. Okay. So this is the topic outline for, I have 6 sub-chapters to be covered for this coming 2 hours. Number 1 is review for contingent liability. Completing audit ni is after we have completed the field work. After we have performed the planning and field work, kita dah collect the evidence, and then what's next? Before we issue the audit report. So what are the important items or matters that auditors should look into before the auditors finalize the opinion and issue the audit report? That is completing audit. So number 1, we will look at the contingent liabilities, whether the contingent liabilities is truly contingent liabilities or it can be regarded as provision. If it is regarded as provision, the disclosure and the disclosure requirement would be different for provision and for contingent. Jadi auditor sepatutnya tahulah. Okay, that's why the first subtopic kita akan cover contingent liabilities. Number 2, we will look at for commitments. What are the type of commitments? Where can we disclose? Where should the accountant disclose the commitments? Number 3, we will look into the subsequent events. Subsequent event is the term used by the auditors here. If based on FRS, the accountants will refer to event after the balance sheet date. FRS events after the balance sheet date. So we will look at the types of the subsequent event that auditors should look into. What are our responsibilities and the time dimension? There are 3 time dimensions. So which part yang auditor has the responsibility to look into, or which dimension that auditor has no responsibility and no responsibility to cover or to amend the audit report. Next one, final evaluation for audit evidence. This one is very short. Just a quick definition of what is going concern, what is going concern issue, what the management for the company, for the corporation should do. Should there be any issue regarding the going concern? How about the opening balance and the comparative figures and the analytical procedure performed by the auditors? For subtopic number 5, we will look into the types of audit report, and number 6, 5 and 6 is together, so I can explain together. 6 is key audit matters. What are the key audit matters that should be included in the audit report? What are the characteristics of findings that the auditor should highlight first in the audit report? Okay. Okay. This one is mapping of AR. AR is audit risk. Mapping of audit risk model to the audit framework as a whole. Kesemua proses audit tu daripada planning sehingga issuance of audit report. What are the process? And this framework we map to the audit risk. Audit risk is inclusive of inherent risk, IR, control risk, and detection risk. So these are the risks that the auditor should look into before we finalize the audit report. Finalizing the audit report is completing the audit lah. Saya akan guna term yang sama. Finalizing the audit and completing the audit adalah 2 benda yang sama. Okay, jadi from planning the audit, and during the planning kita kena buat risk assessment about the inherent risk, about the control risk, the effectiveness of the internal control system of the corporation, whether the internal control system is effective, if the internal control system is effective. And then we perform test of control, and we will look into the final evaluation of internal control. If the internal control system is good, then we finally will reduce the number of substantive tests. And we will complete the audit, finalizing all the evidence, finalizing all our opinion before we issue the audit report. And if during the preliminary evaluation of ICS, internal control system, we found out that the ICS is not in the good condition, is ineffective, inefficient, tidak efficient, tidak bagus, and we conclude that we cannot rely on the internal control system, no. And later on, the auditor should increase the number of substantive tests. When we increase the number of substantive tests, consequently, the number of evidence will increase. Jadi the increased number of evidence will substantiate the risk, will lower down the amount of risk. And then we complete the audit, finalizing our opinion, and we issue the audit report. So this is the overall process of audit, framework of audit in relation, mapping to the audit risk. Okay. Slide saya sudah bergerak ke tidak?
Sudah? Masih kembali, Bu?
Sekejap. Slide tamang. Dekat saya dia tak. Dia masih ada QR code ke di screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Ya. Okay. Okay. You can scan the QR code or go to the website slayu.com, key in the Perbanas code, and you can try to answer the poll. How are you today? Can you hear my voice clearly? Mengantuk ke? Lapar ke? After we have few respondents, and then I can move on to next slide. Very good, I'm good. Cuacanya elok. Cuaca elok agak. Happy? I'm in the best condition. Fine. Good. Okay. All of you are in good condition. Let me remind you once again. If saya laju sangat, slowkan saya. Atau suara saya slow sangat, suruh cakap kuat sikit. Atau kalau tak faham, terus on mic, on your microphone and you can ask question directly to me. I don't mind. Okay. Not bad, but not so good. Alhamdulillah. Okay. Kita akan teruskan. Okay. This one are the framework that I have explained earlier. Okay. Kita ada quiz. Kita terus ada quiz. Jadi, student, you can participate. You can key in your names and then akan appear nama. Okay. The first one is Riku Satria. I can see the number of participants is increasing here. We have about 104 participants, including me. I believe the number of students is around 80, 90. When we reach about 60, we can continue. Okay. The first question is just a revision question. Not so much on the completing audit. It's just a general question to test your understanding on what do you understand about audit. Audit itu is between, audit itu antara siapa dan siapa. Audit itu apa? Okay. Okay. Saya rasa saya teruskan. Nanti kita tak habis dalam masa 2 jam. Saya risau tak habis lah. Okay. Okay, engagement letter can be considered as the contract between the client. The client is referring to the corporation and the auditor. True or false? Engagement letter is the document highlighting the auditor's responsibility, the management responsibility, the number of days audit should be taken place. Okay. The answer is true. Okay. Engagement letter tu can be considered as contract. In that document, kita akan masukkan senarai dan the list of management responsibility, of which number 1, to prepare the financial statement. Number 2, to maintain efficient and effective internal control system. Number 3, to safeguard the company's asset. Number 4, to properly keep the books and records. Okay. While for auditor's responsibility, number 1, to obtain and to give reasonable assurance that the financial statement is free from material misstatement. It's not free from misstatement. It's not free from misstatement. It is free from material misstatement, because we will look into item that has a materiality effect to the financial statement. Not all. Kenapa reasonable assurance? Because we perform audit based on sample, because we have constraint in terms of time. So we highlight everything, the responsibility between the management and the auditors in the engagement letter. If either one of the party breach that engagement letter, the clause inside the engagement letter, if client thinks that the auditor has breached the contract, has performed the audit with negligence, the client can sue the auditor on such basis, because in engagement letter, we have highlighted these are our responsibilities. Okay. Okay, the current leaderboard, we have only 11 questions. Current number 1, Reska, Jinka, and Safina. Okay, we will move on. Kita akan ke slide seterusnya. Kita akan ada 10 lagi soalan. Okay, completion stage of audit. The auditor reviews the evidence obtained during the audit together with the final version of financial statement with the objective of forming the auditor's opinion. That's why in the early presentation, I have mentioned that we have gathered the audit evidence, and before we issue the final audit report, kita kena tengok, we the auditor have to review the evidence sekali lagi dan kena tengok sekali lagi the final version of financial statement. Why we say the final version of financial statement? It is due that during the audit, the auditor will suggest adjustment to some of the transaction. Kita akan ada suggestion for reclassification of transaction. Auditor akan ada adjusting journal entries. So after the accountant has taken into consideration all the suggestions made by the auditors, then they will come up with the final version of financial statement. During the final version of the financial statement, auditor will look into that again, and then baru kita form the final auditor's opinion. Based on ISA 220, International Standard on Auditing 220, quality control for an audit of financial statement, why we have to tengok lagi sekali, why we have to look into the financial statement again before we forming the auditor's opinion is to ensure that the sufficient, appropriate audit evidence has been obtained. How sufficient is depending on the team leader in charge. It depends on the partner in charge. Different auditor will have a different opinion on the concept of sufficiency. Certain auditor will satisfied on only 3 objective, with only 3 evidence. Certain auditor will need to gather more evidence before the auditor satisfied with the statement. That's why the sufficient, appropriate audit evidence is basically depending on and heavily depends on the professional judgment of the auditor himself. Okay. And for contingent liabilities, the first subtopic, subchapter, contingent liability is a potential future obligation to an outside party for an unknown amount arising from activities that have already taken place. There might be a risk that they will not be completely and properly disclosed. Contingent ni dia macam potential. The keyword here is the potential future obligation. The transaction has not taken place yet. Transaction tu tak ada lagi. Transaction tu tidak berlaku lagi. Accountant just expect that the transaction, the obligation will happen in future. So what about the disclosure? Kita kena record di mana? Kita kena disclose di mana? So kenapa auditor? Why auditor look into contingent liability is because there might be a risk that the contingent liability will not be properly disclosed. Sepatutnya disclose the notes to the account. Instead of disclosing the contingent liability in the notes to the account, the accountant disclose in the balance sheet under provision. Itu contoh. When that happens, the financial statement is basically ada misstatement lah. Okay, tak. It's not showing the true and fair view of the financial health of the financial statement. Okay, based on 137, define contingent liability as possible obligation that arises from past event. Transaction asal dah berlaku, and then because of that we have future obligation, and whose existence will be confirmed only by the occurrence or non-occurrence of one or more uncertain future events. Okay, this one is not easy to understand because of this sentence are from the reporting standard from the FRS. The keyword that has been underlined are these two: possible obligation that arises from past event or present obligation that arises from past event but is not recognized. Possible, yeah, students kena tengok you have to understand the difference between these two. A possible obligation that arises from past event. Possible. It may not occur. It may or it may not occur. The second one is present obligation that arises from past event. Tapi kita tak recognize lagi. The accountant has yet to recognize the transaction because why? Number one, it is not probable that an outflow of resources. So, tak nampak funds keluar. Number two, the amount of obligation cannot be measured with sufficient reliability. Tak boleh nak quantify the amount of obligation. If we can quantify, kita kena record lah. If we cannot quantify, then cannot be measured. That's why they're not recognized. Okay. The entity should not recognize a contingent liability. Recognize maksudnya record di dalam balance sheet, statement of financial position, record di asset ataupun di liability lah, should not recognize. An entity should disclose. Student kena beza perkataan recognize dan perkataan disclose. If kita sebut recognize, maksudnya kena mention dalam balance sheet. Kalau kita kata disclose, kena letak dalam notes to the account sahaja. Jadi kita kena check whether the accountants tu properly tengoklah contingent liability. Jadi kalau dia setakat letak dalam notes to the account, dia tak ada apa effect, material effect to the financial statement. Kalau dia recognize dalam financial statement, dalam balance sheet, akan ada impact lah nanti kalau salah record. Okay, itu kenapa kita kena tengok contingent. Okay. The most important difference in terms of accounting treatment for contingent liability and provision is that provision is recognized as liability in the balance sheet, while contingent liability is not recognized. Contingent liability akan disclose dalam notes the account. Dia beza. Kalau provision, kita kena recognize, we will recognize as liability, tapi kalau contingent liability, kita kena disclose dalam notes to the account. The term used will be different. Okay, these are the summaries of contingent liability. There is a present obligation that probably requires outflow. Memang kita ada current obligation dan kita tahu akan ada funds, duit keluar, akan ada wang yang keluar. Bila ada wang yang keluar, kita akan letak di dalam provision. Okay. Kalau possible obligation or present obligation that may, but probably, mungkin will not require an outflow. Jadi tak akan ada provision sebab kita tak tahu lagi duit tu confirm, wang itu confirm keluar ataupun wang itu tidak keluar. Okay. Jadi kita akan disclose dalam contingent liability. And the third one is there is a possible obligation ataupun present obligation where the likelihood of outflow is remote. Is remote maksudnya is very unlikely. Jadi no provision and no disclosure. Remote tu maksudnya very unlikely. Okay. Kita ada another question. To those who join using their handphones, using their mobile phone, you will immediately see the question. Okay. Okay, the question is, provision is recognized as liability in the balance sheet. True or false? Masanya sudah habis. Okay, provision is recognized kalau contingent liability is disclosed in the notes to the account. Jawapan dia true. The answer is true. Kenapa kita kena faham? So that when we look into the notes to the account, when the auditors look into the financial statement, auditor should be able to detect the non-compliance. Auditor should be able to detect the misstatement done by the accountants lah. Okay. Sudah ada nombor 1 yang baru. Next one. Contingent liability should be disclosed in balance sheet, recognized as expenses in profit and loss, or should be disclosed in notes to the account. Okay. Contingent liability should be disclosed in notes to the account. Only provision should recognize in the balance sheet, not in profit and loss. It is totally wrong in the profit and loss statement. But contingent liability should be disclosed in notes to the account because there is a probability. You tak sure whether kita tidak pasti wang tu keluar atau tidak. Kalau provision, kita pasti duit itu akan keluar. Itu bezanya. Okay. Provision, kita pasti duit itu akan keluar. Contingent liability, kita tidak pasti. Okay, kalau tengok dekat chat box ni, ada soalan example of contingent liability, nanti in the next slide ada. How does auditor make sure the amount of contingent liability is exists on the real transaction, not only belief on the balance on the financial position? How does the auditor make sure the amount to it is based on the audit procedure, the triangulation of audit procedure? We can perform inquiries with the client. We can send confirmation letter to the legal team. We will look into the document, the legal document. Based on that evidence gathered, and then we will know the exact amount of the contingent liability exists ke tidak. Okay. So this is the current leaderboard with Mr. Auditor number 2. Okay. So based on the question by Ibu Rosmawati Harun previously, the example of contingent liabilities, and for the students to know as well, material contingent liability should be disclosed in the financial statement, in the notes to the account. Example of contingent liabilities, number 1, pending litigation or court cases. There is someone or some party or customer or banks, creditors or debtors, trade payable yang sue the external party that sue the corporation, that sue your client, our client. Okay. Pending litigation, court cases. Pending litigation maksudnya kes tu masih berjalan. Kes mahkamah masih berjalan dan tiada keputusan daripada mahkamah lagi. Jadi kita tak tahu sama ada, kita auditor tidak tahu sama ada klien kita akan menang ataupun klien kita akan kalah. Kalau klien kita akan menang, how much klien tu akan menang. Kalau kalah, how much klien tu akan kalah. Berapa wang yang kita kena bayar, berapa wang yang klien kena bayar. Jadi that amount is tak confirm lagi. That's why kita letak dalam contingent liability. Once we have confirmed the amount, dah tahu jumlah. Contohnya kalau klien auditor tu sudah kalah dan klien diminta untuk membayar saman penalti sebanyak 10 juta, and then 10 juta tu kena letak di dalam balance sheet, bukan di dalam notes to the account. Okay? Corporate guarantee given to lenders for loans to another party, parent company, holdings company, be a guarantor to their subsidiary. Guarantee, when we become the guarantor for another subsidiary, for another corporation, once we guaranteed that, once the guaranteed corporation to bankrupt, kita yang kena bayar kan, the guarantor yang kena fulfill, yang kena bayar. Jadi selagi tak ada apa-apa isu, maksudnya kita tak akan ada apa-apa liabilities. Okay, dan this one kena mention dalam notes to account. Actual or possible claims made towards the client, income tax disputes, product warranties, agreements or repurchase of receivable that has been sold. This one is basically small medium company tak akan ada this transaction lah. Okay, the transaction yang paling banyak involved dalam contingent liabilities adalah litigation and court cases, and also product warranties. Okay. When we have identified the situation or the item that may contribute to the contingent liability, kita kena perform. Macam saya cakap tadi, there are ways to make sure the amount of contingent liability is true, exists, whether the contingent liability is contingent liability or whether the contingent liability is actually the provision. We should perform few audit procedure. Number 1 up to number 6 is the suggestion, recommendation on the most appropriate audit procedures to be performed to identify the contingent liability. Number 1, you as the auditor should read the minutes of meeting, the board of directors meeting. the shareholders meeting, the committee of the board meeting, the audit committee meeting, the risk management committee meeting. Read the minutes of meeting, because this item yang categorized as contingent liability is benda yang besar terjadi di dalam corporation. Bila benda tu besar yang terjadi dalam corporation, selalunya most probably they will discuss during the meeting. You are not invited to the meeting, but you can read the minutes of meeting after the meeting lah. Okay, number 2, inquire the management or lawyers. Tanya, you can ask the management team, you can ask the legal team. Number 3, review the contracts. You should review the loan agreements, review the leases and correspondence made to and from the party and the one who sue your client. Review the income tax liability, the tax return, inspect other documents, other related documents with regards to the guarantees, if the companies have guarantees, and obtain and review list of contingent liability from the client. Okay, so these are the example of audit procedure that you as the auditors may perform, and the example of contingent liabilities. Okay, as a summary for contingent liabilities, when the amount, bila kita pasti jumlah wang yang akan keluar, dia akan jadi provision. Recognize as provision di dalam balance sheet as liability. If kita tak pasti berapa wang yang kena keluar, bila kita kena bayar, berapa banyak yang kita kena bayar, jadi that transaction tu should be disclosed di dalam notes to the account. That one you kena clear lah. Okay. So subtopic number 2 is review for commitments. Commitment is agreement to commit the entity to a set of fixed condition in future regardless of what happens to profit or economy as well. Macam kita dah ada contract. Contohnya, this is the example. Long-term contractual commitments to acquire capital asset such as plant and machinery, to purchase raw material. Sebagai contoh, ada satu perusahaan, ada satu corporation, dia enter into a commitment agreement dengan supplier. Jadi dia sudah berjanji dengan supplier itu untuk beli barang, untuk beli material daripada supplier itu selama 3 tahun. Dia tak akan pergi kepada supplier yang lain. Jadi kita ada commitment with that particular supplier for 3 years. Okay. That's why dia kata purchase raw materials or to sell their products at a fixed price to customer, to specific customer, fixed condition with set of fixed condition, memang berapa banyak kita kena beli, berapa banyak kita kena jual, regardless of what happened to profit. Maksudnya or economy as a whole. Whatever happens, the external factors, kita tetap kena, sebab kita ada commitment to buy with the supplier for how many years yang you dah agreed on tu lah. Okay. Long-term commitments are usually identified through inquiry of management and other entity personnel. Selalunya you akan dapat tahu jika perusahaan itu ada commitments through inquiry with management, through the interview process with the management. Okay. Whenever you have commitments, you kena disclose dalam notes to account. If you see the accountant, if you review the financial, if you audit the financial statement and then you find out that accountants who record commitment dekat dalam liability, dalam balance sheet, itu salah. You kena suggest the accountant untuk reclassify balik the transaction. Kena buat reclassification of journal entries. Kena keluarkan daripada liability and kena masuk semula dalam notes to account. Okay, you kena suggest lah. You as the auditor kena suggest. The capital commitments are commitment which company has made pertaining to the capital expenditure. Ni for capital commitments. For example, construction of a plant, a major acquisition of machineries, major upgrading of the properties. Kalau you renovate your main building, for renovation will take about 2 years. Okay. The amounts to be incurred are substantial and would normally require approval of board of director. Okay. Okay, disclosure as in the previous slide. In the NTA is referring to the notes to the account. Disclosure dalam notes to the account, you should mention the amount which have been approved and amount which have been approved but not yet contracted for. Maksudnya kita berjanji untuk membeli selama 3 tahun. Tahun pertama jumlah dia 1 juta, tahun kedua 10 juta, tahun ketiga 30 juta. Yang 1 juta itu kena mention, yang 1 juta itu yang kita dah untuk tahun itu which have been approved. Yang tahun pertama yang kita tengah incur. And then tahun kedua and tahun ketiga adalah yang under this category, amount which have been approved. Kita dah approve, so kita dah masuk kontrak itu, but not yet contracted for. Not yet contracted for maksudnya duit itu tak keluar lagi, tapi kita tahu duit itu akan keluar tahun depan. Okay, audit process or audit procedure for commitments. Inquiry the list of capital commitments from the client. You can tengok minutes of board of directors meeting, any related agreement between your client and the supplier, or obtain management representation. Surat pengakuan management representation is somehow like surat pengakuan daripada management. Okay. Okay. We have another question. Which of the following is an example of capital commitments? The correct answer is construction of a plant. Pending litigation, income tax dispute will fall under the category of contingent liabilities. Okay, these two are contingent liabilities. This one is capital commitments. Okay, current leaderboard now. Mr. Auditor has dropped to number 5. What happened to Mr. Auditor? Okay, subchapter number 3, review for subsequent event after the balance sheet date, if you referring to the FRS. ISA 560, International Standard on Auditing number 560, consider the effect of subsequent event on the financial statement and on the auditor's report and ensure that appropriate adjustment ataupun disclosure are made in the financial statement. You have completed the audit, you have completed your audit, you have issued your audit report. And then there is something happened to the company. What you should do? Are you required to amend your previously issued audit report, or you should not amend any part of your audit report? You have to identify which is which, whether you should amend or you should not amend your audit report for the subsequent event. Under the same standard, the term subsequent event is used to refer to both event occurring between the date of the financial statement and the date of audited report. The date of the financial statement, for example, the date of financial statement is on the 31st December 2020, but you signed the audit report on the 28th February 2021. During the 2 months after the balance sheet date, but before you sign your audit report, that is called subsequent event. Whatever happens during that period, it is called as subsequent event. Number 2 is facts discovered after you have signed your audit report, but before the annual report, the financial statement is given to the stakeholders. What these two is considered as subsequent event. Management of the entity has the responsibility for establishing policies and procedures to identify and account for subsequent event. Maksudnya di sini, manajemen itu sendiri, tim manajemen itu sendiri yang sepatutnya bertanggungjawab untuk ada polisi. Jika event ini terjadi, sepatutnya manajemen buat apa? Jika event yang sebagai contoh, account tutup, financial statement, the financial year end is on the 31st December. You tengah buat audit, tiba-tiba bangunan terbakar. The building is on fire, all the records, all the books, all the financial statement, all the documents rosak, terbakar. And now financial statement dah sudah siap, you pun dah sudah audit. Tapi you belum sign je lagi audit report tu. Jadi what happened? You kena buat macam ni. You nak report dalam audit report you, tapi sekarang ni benda tu jadi the next year. You tengah tengok tahun yang lepas. What happened? Jadi management yang sepatutnya ada policies, that kind of policies. Whether kita nak recognize tu sebagai subsequent event ataupun tidak. Auditor should review the management procedure to identify subsequent event and perform specific audit procedure. Management responsibility is to establish the policies, while we, the auditor, should review the policies made by the management and perform audit procedure to identify whether there is any subsequent event or not. When auditor become aware of subsequent event which are material, benda tu material to the financial statement, the auditor should determine whether they have properly accounted for or disclosed in the financial statement. So these are the two types of event falls under the subsequent event, type 1 event and type 2 event. Type 1 event is the event that affects the estimate that are part of the financial statement. So this event require adjustment to the financial statement. Type 2 event, condition did not exist at the balance sheet date. Event to after the audit report has been signed. Dah lama lepas. Okay. So require disclosure and possibly pro forma financial statement. Okay. This basically is this framework basically highlight and shows you the auditor's responsibility based on the date. Reporting date, the financial year end for audit for financial statement is 31st December. 1st February is the end date of field work and audit report signed. You have signed your audit report on the 1st February. And financial statement deliver on the 15th February. Deliver financial statement maksudnya financial statement tu has been given to the shareholders, has been given to the stakeholders, sudah lepas kepada orang awam. Itu maksudnya financial statement deliver 15th February. From 1st January up to 15th February and onward, it is called as subsequent event. Whatever event happens after the balance sheet date, we call that as subsequent event. The difference is for auditors kena tahu which event yang perlu dibetulkan di dalam financial statement and which event yang perlu kita ignore sahaja. Okay. Kita panggil ini daripada 31st December sehingga 1 February sehingga 1st February is we call subsequent period, and post audit period. Post audit period is when we have already signed the audit report. Okay. This is the summary of our duty as the auditor. There are active duty and passive duty. Year end is 31st December 2020. And this is the date the auditor signed the audit report. During this period, between 31st December, between 1st January 2021, up to the date that the auditor signed the audit report, we have the active duty as an auditor. Maksudnya, we as the auditor have a duty to search for all material events between the financial statement date and the audit report signed. Kita kena cari sebab kita masih di dalam tugas tanggungjawab auditor lagi. When we have already signed the audit report, until the financial statement is issued and until the annual general meeting for that corporation, we will have passive duty. We will no longer have the duty to report or whatsoever. So between the signing of audit report, this period, and the issuing of the financial statement, we as the auditor only have to act, only have to know to perform procedure if they are made aware. If ada yang beritahu kita, if client inform kita yang benda ini telah terjadi, event ini telah terjadi. If auditor aware, auditor has a duty to take necessary action. During this period, we have active duty. Kita yang kena cari event itu. During passive duty, kita tak perlu cari event after the balance sheet date, but if client inform kita and then kita kena cari kita kena betulkan, kita kena tengok, kita kena review. Okay, under active duty, what are our actions? Number one, we should discuss with the management. Management kena amend the financial statement. If the client update the financial statement, dia diperbetulkan mengikut cadangan daripada pihak auditor, and then auditor will issue unqualified audit report. There is nothing wrong with the company. Semua okay. Sebab client sudah betulkan. If client refuse to amend the financial statement, and then auditor will issue qualified audit report. Qualified audit report means there is something that there is a misstatement with the financial statement, whether it is due to the disagreement or whether it is due to the scope limitation and whatnot. Okay, so these are our actions during the active duty period. After the auditor has signed the audit report, action that should be taken by auditor is to discuss with the management, amend the financial statement, and you as the auditor should redraft the audit report. Audit report tadi sudah siap di sini. Sekarang ni event tu terjadi after audit report sudah siap sign, sudah siap ditandatangan. Jadi jika you betulkan financial statement, audit report kita perlu diperbetulkan juga. Sebab audit report sudah sign di sini. Jadi during this period, during this stage, financial statement should be amended. Audit report is also kena betulkan. If client refuse, you should seek legal advice from the legal team. You should attend the annual general meeting and highlight these matters yourself in front of the shareholders, or you can resign. Because this action, because if you tak betulkan ni, as if you akan di-charge negligence lah. Okay. And passive duty during the third stage, discuss with management, kena betulkan financial statement, amend the audit report, and same as the second stage, if the client refuse to amend the financial statement, you should seek legal advice, attend the annual general meeting, and also you can resign. Okay, because of ada dispute with the client. Okay, next question. Auditor will have an active duty to search for all material events between the financial statement date and the audit report is signed. During this, true or false? The answer is true. Active duty is here. Active duty between the financial statement, the date of financial statement and the date of audit report, we will have active duty to search for the events after the balance sheet date. Okay. Audit procedure for subsequent events. These are example of procedure that auditors can perform for subsequent event. Number one, review procedures, management policies has established to ensure subsequent event are identified. Read the minutes of meeting, read the board of director minutes of meeting, review the corporation's budget, cash flow forecast, and other management report, inquire with the legal team, discuss with the management on the following. If you have new capital commitment, you have borrowings, if you have guarantees, if there is any sales of assets, mergers and acquisition happens during the period under audit. For example, the financial year end is on the 31st December. You tengah buat audit during the January. Bulan 2 February sepatutnya you sign audit report. During January, ada merger. Your client merge with another company, with another corporation. That merger and acquisition happens during your audit, during your active duty as an audit. Jadi you kena mention lah. Okay. whether there is any new issuance of share or debentures during the period, any damages of the asset due to fire, as I told you earlier, examples I earlier, or flood. Okay. You can ask the legal counsel about the litigation, about the claims, and obtain representation letter from the management team lah, declaration from the management. Okay. Last question for subsequent event. Why auditors perform subsequent event? Why we, the auditors, perform subsequent event? The answer is to detect event after the reporting date which may affect the financial statement. To detect material misstatement in the financial statement is the financial statement objective as general lah. Tapi for subsequent event review, the objective is to detect events after the balance sheet date which may give effect to the financial statement as a whole. Okay. This is the current leaderboard. So we have now come to the subtopic number 4, final evaluation of audit evidence. AE is audit evidence. We will look into going concern, opening balance, comparative figures, analytical procedure, and also accounting estimates. So under ISA 570, requires auditor to assess the risk of going concern problem at the planning stage. Before you start audit, you kena tengok dulu. You have to review the going concern, and sekali lagi semasa final stage of audit. So ada 2 kali. There are 2 times when you have to look into and to review the status for going concern. Under the going concern assumption, an entity is assumed to be able to continue as a going concern for a foreseeable future period of at least 12 months beyond the year end date. Going concern assumption, as we assume the company can go on in operation for a foreseeable future, at least for next year, at least for the next 12 months. Itu adalah going concern assumption. When we say the company has going concern issue or going concern risk, it means that the company has possibility of bankruptcy. Company itu, perusahaan itu tidak mampu untuk bayar liability, current liability for the next 12 months. Dia tidak cukup uang untuk bayar current liabilities for the next 12 months. Dia ada isu untuk bankrupt, move list. Okay? Itu adalah going concern issue, going concern risk. But going concern assumption is that we assume the corporation should be in operation for a foreseeable future. So accordingly, assets and liabilities are recorded on the basis that the entity will be able to realize all the assets and discharge. Discharge liability means we can fulfill all our liabilities in the normal course of business. Okay, auditor is responsible to consider the appropriateness of the management use of going concern assumption. Maksudnya, auditor ni kena tahu sama ada management ni aware tak? Management ini tahu atau tidak mereka ada masalah going concern. Itu number 1. Number 2, we should be alert whether there are any material uncertainties about the entity's ability to continue as the going concern. So these are the indicator. These are the indicator that may reflect that the company, that the corporation, that the perusahaan ada masalah, ada issue to continue their operation for next year. Okay. Operating indicator, loss of major market, loss of franchise, loss of principal supplier, shortage of important suppliers, which result in interruption of production line. When supplier has you dah hilang pembekal, Jadi production lines, you punya production akan terganggu. Bila you punya production terganggu, you punya finished product pun akan, jumlah finished product pun akan terganggu, jualan pun akan terganggu. Okay. Loss of management personnel without replacement. Ada indicator pending legal proceedings, changes in legislation, perubahan undang-undang. Okay, financial indicator, net liabilities. Adverse key financial ratios, all the current ratios, acid test ratios show negative results. You punya average collection period shows a negative result, takes longer to collect your receivable. Okay, substantial operating losses, poor sales. You jual tidak banyak. High cost, reduce in margin. Reduce in margin maksudnya you punya profit tu berkurangan. Okay. Inability to pay creditors as and when fall due. You tak boleh bayar hutang you kepada creditors. Changes from credit to cash on delivery. You tak dapat, you have the inability to obtain financial help, support from financial institution. Okay, these are the example of for going concern indicator. If during your audit you have found this indicator, maksudnya company itu ada masalah to continue for the next year. Early stage of going concern issue. So these are the going concern problem indication. Liabilities exceed the asset. These are the mitigating factors to be considered by auditors. Maksudnya management sepatutnya buat apa? Okay. Jadi if the liabilities exceed the asset, mitigated by the management plan to maintain adequate cash by disposal of asset. The corporation will have to dispose some of the asset, reschedule the loan, refinance the loan, confirm the financial support. If this event has taken place, maksudnya management sudah buat usaha-usaha yang ini, auditors will be satisfied and kita akan issue a new audit report. So loss of principal mitigated by availability of alternative source of supply, principal supplier. So the availability of stock enable the company to stay in operation at least for the next 12 months untuk tahun berikutnya. Jadi auditor perlu analyze and discuss the cash flow, profit forecast with management, review events after the period and review the terms of debentures, review the minutes of meeting yang ada discuss that the management has discussed their financial difficulties, inquire of the entity's lawyer, obtain letter of financial support from the banks, seek written representation from the management. These are what auditors can do. Okay. For going concern, audit conclusion and report. Okay. If you think that the going concern is appropriate and resolved, sudah selesai. So there will be no modification on the report and you will issue unqualified report. The mitigation factors, the mitigation steps taken by the management is sufficient. You totally feels that the mitigation factors taken by the management is appropriate, totally appropriate and resolved. You have been satisfied with the evidence, then you should issue unqualified opinion. If you think the mitigation factor is appropriate, but belum resolve, dia ada usaha untuk resolve, tapi the going concern issue tu belum resolve, belum selesai, belum sempurna. You kena the auditors will issue qualified report if the item is not material and pervasive. Pervasive maksudnya the impact of the item, the impact of the events is throughout the financial statement, not only contained to one part of the financial statement. Itu maksudnya pervasive. And if the item is highly material and highly pervasive, you kena issue adverse audit opinion. Okay. If you, the auditor, think that the mitigation factors is inappropriate, then you should issue qualified audit report. Or if the item is very material and pervasive, you can issue adverse. If the item is not appropriate and not resolved, you akan issue qualified or disclaimer opinion. For opening balance and comparative figures, ISA 510 requires auditor to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence to ensure that the opening balance do not contain material misstatement. Opening balance is referring to all the balance of the accounts on the first, for example, if the financial year end is 31st December, 31st December kita dah tutup semua account, and then the next day on the 1st January, kita akan ada satu balance, kita panggil opening balance. Itu opening balance tu kita kena, auditors kena make sure the opening balance does not contain material misstatement, whatever transaction that has belonged to the last year kena dah letak last year. Okay, cut off point tu kena tengok betul-betul lah. Okay. Opening balance have been correctly brought forward, appropriate accounting policies are consistently applied. These are the objective. Why? Reason why we, the auditors, need to review on the opening balance. So how we should review the opening balance? How can be answered by audit procedure lah. Number one, you can ascertain the accounting policies adopted and determine whether the policies are consistent. You can ascertain previous year audit report. Tengok audit report tahun lepas. If the prior financial statement were audited by other auditors, you kena request the information from the other auditors. Okay, assess the materiality of the opening balance. And for comparative figures, under ISA 710, auditor should determine whether the comparative comply in all material respect with the financial reporting framework relevant to the financial statement being audited. Comparative figure, if you look at whether there is a consolidated accounts between the holdings company, parent company, and the subsidiary company, the consol amount, the comparative group last year and this year, group and company, to the amount is appropriate. Okay. FRS 101, comparative information should be disclosed in respect of the previous period for all amounts. Okay. Okay, this one is important for analytical procedure. Okay. Under International Standard on Auditing 520, the auditor should apply analytical procedure at the end of audit when performing an overall conclusion, whether the financial statement is consistent with our knowledge. Purpose of analytical procedure, there are 3 stages where we can perform AP, analytical procedure, during the planning of the audit, during the audit, and during the end of audit. During the planning of audit, before you collect evidence, you baru plan your audit, you baru plan what are the audit procedures, how many evidence should be collected, how many staff should be involved during the planning stage. The benefit of having the analytical procedure is the findings from the analytical procedure can assist you in understanding the business and identify area of potential risks. Analytical procedure ada 3. Satu, you compare figure account tahun lepas dan tahun semasa. Contohnya, for example, last year the depreciation amount adalah 500,000. This year depreciation amount is 100,000. Beza dia. Last year 500, this year 100. Beza 400,000 tu kenapa? 400,000 tu sebab apa? Kenapa beza dia macam tu? Okay. Jadi you tahu there is something, I should not say something wrong with the account. There is something happen during the year which made the amount falls from 500 to 100. Dia jual ke aset dia? Dia sell off the assets ke? Tertinggal record the transaction the transaction for depreciation has been omitted ke? Okay, you kena tengok lah. So that you tahu, bila you planning tu, you buat comparative tu, you buat comparison between last year and this year figure, you will know which account that you should focus more, which area that should focus more. That area contain potential risk, okay, and determine the nature, timing, and extent of audit procedure. For during the audit, analytical procedure will be regarded as the substantive test to reduce the detection risk. Why detection risk? Detection risk is the risk that the auditor cannot detect any financial, any material misstatement. So if we perform analytical procedure during the audit, the risk of having detection risk can be reduced. And the third stage of performing the analytical procedure is during the end of audit, so that auditor can form overall conclusion on the financial statement, so auditors can know whether keadaan financial statement itu is consistent with our knowledge about the financial statement. Okay. Example, during substantive test, auditor concluded that account receivable is fairly stated. When analytical procedure on account receivable is performed, and if the result also conclude the amount is fairly stated, we can reconfirm the conclusion and it can be as a basis for our opinion before we sign off the audit report. Okay. Accounting estimates. Accountants will prepare the financial statement, the yearly financial statement, based on many assumptions and estimates. So, example of estimate is provision. These are example of estimates. ISA 540, auditor should obtain audit evidence regarding the accounting estimates, which include allowance to reduce inventory and receivable to their NRV. The amount NRV tu betul ke tidak? Okay. Depreciation, whether the accountants state the depreciation rate tu sesuai atau tidak. Accrued revenue amount on the deferred tax asset, on the deferred tax liability, provision for loss, provision to make warranty claim. Okay. So these are the examples and these are what auditors can do. Number one, review and testing the process used by the management. You tengok balik, evaluate the data, estimate the account receivable, review the aging report. You kena tengok dia punya policies on the doubtful debts. You kena test the calculation. Contohnya on depreciation, you recalculate back the amount of depreciation, compare the estimation current year and last year. Okay. That's it. Itu adalah apa yang you can do for accounting estimate. So next question. Below are the example of going concern issue, kecuali, melainkan, jawapannya pending legal proceeding against its major supplier due to the supplier breaching the contract. This one is included dalam contingent liability. Okay. This current report. Okay, next question. Why we perform analytical procedure at the end of audit? Why? Why we perform analytical procedure at the end of audit? To form overall conclusion that the financial statement are consistent with the knowledge of the business. Identify area of potential risk is benefit of analytical procedure during the planning stage. As substantive test to reduce detection risk is during the audit. At the final stage of audit, these are the reason why we perform analytical procedure. Okay, we have new number 1. Okay, now we have come to the last subtopic for completing audit, independent audit report and key audit matters. So in audit report, there are 4 ISA involved, ISA 700, ISA 701, communicating the key audit matters in the independence audit report, International Standard on Auditing number 705, on how we can modify the opinion, ISA 706 is on the emphasis of matters paragraph di dalam audit report. Okay. The audit report is the final stage of the entire audit process. Paling last sekali, terakhir sekali. It is a written communication of audit findings to the shareholders, pemegang taruh. It may also be read by others such as bankers, creditors, and other parties who use the information in the financial statement. Okay, it is a requirement for the auditors to report to the members. Members of company referring to the shareholders on the accounts, and the audit report should be presented at the annual general meeting. So this audit report serves as to avoid confusion to the readers. It is important for the auditing profession to adopt conventional and uniform wording in audit report. Okay. These are the basic, under ISA 700, these are the basic elements of an audit report. Tak kisahlah audit report tu di mana sekalipun, di negara mana sekalipun, ini sepatutnya ada dalam auditor's report. Should have the title, should have the addressee. Addressee tu is referring to those who receive the audit report. The auditor's opinion, basis for the opinion, the key audit matters. Key audit matters is the evidence that should be highlighted the most in your audit report. The management responsibilities, the auditor's responsibilities, other reporting responsibilities, name of the partner in charge, signature of the auditors, auditor's address, office address, and date of the auditor's report. So on the key audit matters, those matters that the auditor's professionals based on you as the auditor were the most significant in the audit. During your audit, you will find 20, 30 audit findings. Di antara 20 audit findings tu, yang mana you rasa perlu diberitahu dulu? Yang mana you rasa should be put into, should be highlighted first? The most significant audit findings based on your opinion, based on your professional judgment. Key audit matters are selected from matters communicated with the TCWG is those charged with governance. TCWG is those charged with governance, meaning the board of directors, the audit committee, and the management, those charged with governance. The one who made decision for the company. That is called those charged with governance. The overall objective of communicating the key audit matters is to provide insight to the users of the financial report, so that the readers of financial report, the readers of the audit report will know this is the most important findings found by the audit team. It is expected that the number of key audit matters will vary between entities. Some company will have 3 key audit matters. Some company will have none. Dia langsung tiada key audit matters. Some company will have only 1 key audit matters. That's why the data will vary between entities. Even for those entities in the same industry and even for the same entity year on year. It means that this corporation last year they had 3 key audit matters. This year they only have 1 key audit matters. Next year they may not have any key audit matters. This is what meant by the third point. Since the concept of key audit matters is relative, it is envisaged that there will always be at least 1 for each audit. Okay. The purpose of communicating the key audit matters is to enhance the communicative value. True or false? The answer is true. So that the readers of the report will have clearer presentation of what happened in the corporation. Greater transparency. Okay. In January 2015, IASB issued ISA 701 communicating key audit matters. This standard is required to be applied to the audit of all listed entities, the one who is on the board, on the exchange, on the stock exchange. The objective of ISA 701 are for the auditors to, we must determine those matters that are regarded as key audit matters. Kita, auditors kena determine which one is key audit matters and which are not. And once we have decided that this matter is regarded as key audit matters, we should communicate those matters in the audit report. Okay. So for determination of key audit matters, there are three characteristics. There are three matters in which the ISA require auditor to take into account before you determine this is the key audit matters. You can fulfill these three requirements. Number one, area which are considered to be susceptible to higher risk of material misstatement. Maksudnya, findings itu datangnya daripada account, datangnya daripada area which possess higher risk of material misstatement. Contohnya receivable, contohnya depreciation, account yang you rasa, area yang you rasa ada potensi yang tinggi untuk ada risk of misstatement. Misstatement ada dua, satu fraud, satu error. Okay, or which were deemed to be significant risk. Number two, material misstatement through understanding the entities and its environment. Number one, area tu should come from higher risk punya area. Number two, it should be material. Number three, significant auditor's judgment in relation to the areas of the financial statement that involve significant management judgment. Maksudnya you sendiri yang decide, you based on your professional judgment, you decide this item is significant. When you have determined that the item is significant, then you can report dalam key audit matters. Communicating the key audit matters, once the auditor has determined which matters that should be included in the audit report, the auditor must ensure that each matter is appropriately described. You explain kenapa you kata itu adalah key audit matters. Explain why, describe why the matters was determined to be one of the most significant findings, why, and how you address the issue dalam audit. You kata, you as the auditor kata that the item is significant. So how do you address the issue? How do you address the issue in audit? Okay. So now on the types of audit report, there are three. Number one, standard unqualified audit report, when there is nothing wrong with the corporation, nothing wrong with the perusahaan. Jadi clean audit report, we call that as clean audit report. Number two, unqualified audit report with emphasis of matters. Basically, the financial statement does show a true and fair view of the financial situation of the company. Tapi ada satu area yang you nak cakap sikit. Ada isu going concern contohnya. Okay. Number three, when the auditor is not able to issue unqualified report due to scope limitation, you dihalang, auditor that is prevented from performing audit procedure, or whether there is disagreement between the auditor and the client, the corporation. You can issue qualified opinion ataupun adverse opinion or disclaimer opinion. For emphasis of matter, as I mentioned earlier, it does not affect the auditor's opinion. Auditors only emphasize on specific matters. For example, there is auditor has substantial doubt about going concern. You rasa company tu macam tak boleh nak bayar hutang. Okay. Ada inconsistency in the approved accounting standard application. Okay, these are the example of item that happen yang you may that will make you issue emphasis of matters paragraph. So under modified audit report, there is inherent uncertainty. You tak tahu inherent uncertainty situation which may affect the financial statement, whereby nature it means that their outcome cannot be objectively or reasonably determined. Contohnya, for example, unresolved lawsuit, doubts as to the outcome of long-term contracts, doubts on the ability of the firm to sell the product. Okay, you ada rasa uncertainty about the company, and then you can modify the audit report. Maksudnya you akan kata qualified audit report. So limitation on the scope of audit, you can issue disclaimer opinion. Auditors unable to obtain all the information and explanation. You cannot fulfill yourself. Evidence you tak cukup, you tak dapat, auditor did not have sufficient explanation from the corporation. Unable to accumulate sufficient appropriate evidence. Due to these factors. Number one, there is unable to carry an audit procedure considered necessary. You tak dapat nak buat audit procedure tu. Absence of proper documents and accounting records. The inability of documents, evidence. Client's imposition. Maksudnya, you nak jumpa management, you dihalang daripada jumpa management. You nak tengok dokumen, you tidak dibenarkan untuk auditor tidak dibenarkan untuk review dokumen, tidak dibenarkan untuk tengok minutes of meeting. Okay, limitation imposed by circumstances is where, for example, macam you nak tengok dokumen tu hilang because of dokumen tu rosak because of banjir, because of flood, because of fire. Okay, under the third reason for modification of audit report is on disagreement. You able to form an opinion. Tadi tu you cannot form an opinion sebab you tak tengok dokumen, you tak tahu account betul ke salah. You tak tahu, you cannot form an opinion. Yang this one, you can form the opinion and you confirm account salah. Apa yang accountant tu buat salah, you confirm, you can confirm that. Itu bezanya. Okay, due to non-compliance, non-conformity with the standard, disagreement with the facts, disagreement with the client with the facts disclosed dalam financial statement, inadequate disclosure included in the financial statement. Okay, so these are the summary on how to guide the auditors before issuing the audit report. First thing first, you should ask yourself as the auditors, is the financial reports presented fairly in all material respect in accordance with the account standards and all relevant statutory requirement? You should ask that first. The financial statement do is true and fair view or not? If your answer is yes, and then you can issue standard unqualified audit report or unqualified report with emphasis of matter. Emphasis of matter ni is item related to the going concern. Kalau ada issue going concern, terus letak unqualified report with emphasis of matter. If when you ask this question, if the financial statement presented fairly in all material respect, you kata no, the financial report is not presented fairly. Ask yourself again, why? Why are the financial report not presented fairly? Whether it is due to scope limitation or whether it is due to disagreement with management. If your reason is due to scope limitation, tanya lagi. Is the matter material and pervasive? If yes, the item is highly material and pervasive, you should issue modified report with a disclaimer audit opinion. If it is only material but not pervasive, you should issue qualified report with except for opinion. And in this part, if your answer is disagreement with management, you kena tanya lagi whether it is highly material and pervasive. And if your answer is yes, the item is highly material and pervasive, you should issue modified report with an adverse opinion. If it is only material, then you should only issue except for opinion. Okay. My last two slides is on the questions. Okay. This question, choose any two examples of scope limitation. Examples of scope limitation. Choose any two. Okay. Refusal to give the auditor access to the minutes of board of directors meetings. You have been imposed limitation. You tak boleh review the document. Preventing debtors from being approached by the auditors. Also considered as scope limitation. Refusal of directors to amend the financial statement to reflect the adjustment. This one is disagreement. You tahu benda itu salah, you ask the directors to amend the financial statement and the management refuse. There is a dispute between you and the directors, between you and the management. Number two ni falls under the disagreement with management. Okay, let's come into the board. Adverse opinion is issued when the auditors believe when you should issue adverse opinion. The overall financial statement are so materially misstated and they do not present fairly the financial position of the corporation or the results of the operation and cash flow in conformity with the standard. Okay. Congratulations to Muhammad Zafrullah Hanif. Number 2, Cynthia Carolina, Nada Shifa, Viz and Safina. Most of you get the question correctly. So that will be all. 1 hour and 45 minutes. Do you have any question?
Thank you, Ibu Henny. Hello, everybody.
Yes.
In chat room.
Yes.
Well, I have written my question in the Slido, Mrs. Henny.
Okay.
Sebentar.
Or raise hand. Mahasiswa, please raise hand. If you any questions.
Sebentar saya lihat di Slido. Okay. Viz, what is the best audit procedure to check or make sure for provision for all contingency? The best audit procedure, the first one is you have to identify the item first. Identify the item first. If you read through the notes to account, you will find whether there is contingent liabilities. or if you look at the liability section under the balance sheet, you will see any provision. So if you had identified provision and the liabilities, and then you, for example, the contingent liabilities, the item is on the litigation, ada orang sue your client, and then ask the legal team whether this item is correct. You should review the document from the court, from the mahkamah, and then you will know whether the item is correct or not. If you ask directly the client may not give you the correct answer. You should ask question apart from directly asking the client. For example, you should ask the lawyer. You should ask the third party who sues your client. You should review the document. Okay, Viz, am I answering your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. Question from Novi. How does auditor make sure the amount of contingent liabilities exists? This one, I believe I have answered your question during the class. Afifa Makfira, how does the audit evidence gathered relate to evaluate to the overall audit results? Okay. The sufficiency of audit evidence is depending on you. If you think, Afifa, if you think that, okay, Afifa, can you on your microphone? Afifa? Afifa.
Afifa? Raise your hand.
Okay. So raise hand. Afifa, can you please on your microphone?
I'm sorry,
Can you
ma'am.
unmute?
It was disabled.
Oh.
There.
Okay. I will give a simple example. Okay, we as the auditor, we need to confirm for example, in the balance sheet, we have motor vehicles. Under the non-current asset, we have motor vehicles. The corporation said in the balance sheet, it is said that the company, your client, have 10 cars, 10 lorries, and 10 buses. Ada 10 lori, 10 bus, dan 10 mobil. You as the auditor, you ketuanya, apa evidence yang pertama you cari? You kata you will look into the existence of the motor vehicles. When you say you want to see the existence of the motor vehicles, betul ke tidak? Motor vehicles itu wujud, ada, you kena pergi tengok lah. You kena pergi site, you kena pergi tengok, there are 10 cars, 10 buses and 10 lorries. Baru satu evidence. You rasa satu evidence itu cukup atau tidak? Kalau you rasa tak cukup, maksudnya you yang soalan Afifah tadi, audit evidence gathered relate to evaluate, maksudnya you tak boleh evaluate lagi overall audit ni. You cari lagi sufficiency, you cari the second audit evidence. You kena make sure whether the motor vehicles belong to your client. The rights and obligation for the motor vehicles. You kena tengok kereta itu pajakannya dengan siapa, kena tengok siapa yang punya, dokumen, diregisterkan, didaftarkan di bawah nama siapa. Okay, ada dua evidence, sudah ada dua evidence terkumpul. Kalau auditor rasa satisfied, cukup untuk evaluate the overall audit result, and then you continue. You cukuplah, janganlah buat audit procedure lagi. If you think these two audit evidence is not enough, and you should perform another audit procedure. You recalculate the amount of depreciation, for example. Then you have you now have 3 audit evidence. If you think 3 audit evidence is enough, is sufficient, and then you can conclude the overall results. Okay, Afifah, are you clear? Okay. Afifah, kalau Afifah, if you think my answers are sufficient, you jawab okay sebenarnya jawapan. Okay, next question is by Sepi Yoga. I hope I pronounce your name correctly. When will the result of audit report be free from audit risk? Audit report will never be free from audit risk. Risk cannot be eliminated. Risk in general cannot be eliminated. Regardless of audit risk or inherent risk or detection risk or audit business risk, there is no way for you to be free from risk. Risk can only be reduced. There is still you have risk. Contohnya, for example, can you say that you are free from risk of failing this paper? Boleh tak you cakap you langsung tidak ada risiko untuk fail paper audit? You tak boleh guarantee. Maksudnya you tak boleh nak kata yes, I am free from risk of failing this paper. You cannot say that. But you can say that you will reduce the the risk of failing this paper. Gagal mata kuliah ini. Dengan cara apa? Dengan belajar bersungguh, dengan buat latihan, dengan datang kuliah, dengan tanya kepada dosen. You can only reduce the risk, but you cannot eliminate the risk. So answering your question, when will the result of audit report be free from risk? No, we cannot say that we will be free from audit risk, We can only reduce the audit risk to a certain acceptable level. Okay, what does the CPA do to determine consistency in the application of accounting policies? The simplest procedure that we can perform to determine consistency of the application is you tengok audit report yang lepas. You review the last year's audit report. You review the last year financial statement. And this year, you tengok the accounting policies, sama ke tidak? Last year and this year, accounting policies sama. Kalau sama, ada possibility of having a consistency. And then you lihat semula, you audit tahun 2021, you tengok financial statement tahun 2020, 2019. If the 3 years backwards, the accounting policies and principle are consistent, then there is a consistency in application of accounting policies. That is the simplest way. Okay. Henny, where is the key audit matter statement in the audit report? Okay. Audit report nowadays is longer than previous audit report. The first paragraph, you mentioned the introductory paragraph. Maksudnya, you mentioned what are your responsibilities as the auditors, what are management responsibilities. Second paragraph, you mentioned your opinion and your basis for opinion. Starting from third paragraph, you can start to mention the key audit matters. What are the most significant item to be disclosed dalam audit report? The third paragraph and onwards. Some auditors will present the key audit matters in a table dalam jadual. Some auditors will just write in paragraph. But the key audit matters should be after you mentioning the auditor's responsibility, the director, the management responsibility, the auditor's responsibility, your opinion and the basis for opinion, and then you go to key audit matters. Okay. Any other question? In the chat box. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Okay. No question? There is no question? Oh, clear? I hope you all, the students are clear with my explanation because as I mentioned earlier, this chapter will take about 5 weeks to cover, but I have compressed all the sub-chapter in just 2 hours. Okay, I think that's all from me. Ibu Tri, saya sudah selesai.
Thank you. This is Henny. Henny, well, it's a really faithful discussion. Thank you for joining us. Hope you really enjoy this session. Looking forward to seeing you all again next week. Please apologize of any inconvenience my cause. Thank you and have a great day. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, Mr. Yanto. Please closing. Speak. Closing. Pak Yanto, mohon ditutup.
Oh iya Ibu, terima kasih Ibu. Bu Trinandari dan Bu siapa? Sebentar. Ya, terima kasih kepada Bu Henny Hazliza ya dari UiTM dan juga untuk Bu Trinandari dan juga teman-teman semua, teman-teman mahasiswa dan juga dari pihak UiTM dan juga dosen ya, ada dosen di sini. Terima kasih semuanya telah hadir dan sekali lagi untuk absensi tolong diisi ya absensinya dan kita ketemu lagi di hari Rabu minggu depan ya Wednesday tanggal 1 Desember di jam yang sama jadi waktu dan sama tapi tanggalnya berbeda ya di Rabu minggu depan tanggal 1 Desember gitu ya. Demikian
Maaf,
terima kasih
Pak
semuanya.
Yanto, bukan tanggal 1,
Ya.
tanggal 7. 7.
Oh ya tanggal 7. Lupa saya ya. Tanggal 7 Desember ya. Ya tanggal 7 Desember kita akan ketemu lagi tapi dengan narasumber dari Perbanas nanti dengan dosennya Ibu Trinandari ya, seperti itu. Baik, itu aja. Terima kasih semuanya sekali lagi Bu Henny Riza dan pihak UiTM yang sudah berpartisipasi dalam acara teaching collaboration ini gitu ya. Dan juga tak lupa Bu Inung dan para dosen serta mahasiswa. Sekali lagi terima kasih Bu Trinandari.
Terima kasih dari
Cukup
saya
ya.
juga.
Terima kasih Ibu Henny,
Ya.
para dosen di UiTM. Terima kasih banyak atas sharing ilmunya.
Oke, sama-sama. Terima kasih juga untuk semuanya. Saya harap bermanfaat and beneficial.
Alhamdulillah banyak yang bertanya, Bu Henny. Banyak mahasiswa yang bertanya, berarti lebih bagus lagi. Menarik ya. Boleh foto Pak Yanto, biar mahasiswanya on cam untuk absen. Please,
Oh
mahasiswa.
ya. Kalau boleh, kalau ini silakan aktifkan kameranya mungkin untuk dokumentasi ya. Ya, saya lupa itu. Oke. Siap ya. Ada 3 slide di sini. Oke, saya ambil satu-satu ya ininya ya. Baik, slide yang pertama 1, 2, 3. Oke, sebentar saya pindahkan dulu. Slide yang kedua 1, 2, 3. Baik. Slide yang ketiga 1, 2, 3. Oke, baik cukup. sekali lagi terima kasih untuk semuanya dan semoga bermanfaat bagi kita semua, menambah ilmu gitu ya. Tapi ini belum berakhir, minggu depan tanggal 7 Desember kita akan bahas lagi tentang topik khususnya di auditing ya, di mata kuliah auditing. Oke, terima kasih Bapak Ibu semuanya dan adik-adik mahasiswa. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih
Terima
semuanya.
kasih.
Terima kasih.
Terima
Bu
kasih.
Henny. Terima kasih
semuanya.
Thank you, Bu Henny.
Dari UiTM.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Permission to. Thank you.
You are
Mahasiswa.
welcome.
Jangan lupa absensinya ya, diklik ya, diisi ya. Makasih.
Jangan lupa tugasnya ya. Saya beri tugas. Kerangkum.
Iya, Bu, siap.
Oke, makasih.
Oke, saya keluar dulu ya. Nanti saya
Ya, Bu
nanti
Henny,
saya beri
silakan.
Ibu
Terima
Tri
kasih banyak
CV-nya.
Bu Henny ya.
Oke,
Terima kasih.
saya pergi dulu. Saya permisi dulu. Insyaallah nanti jumpa lagi. Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam.
Waalaikumsalam.
Saya juga pamit ya Bu Inung, Pak.
Ya, Putrin. Terima kasih, Putrin.
Banyak ya. Mahasiswa
silakan,
ya.
makasih.
Sehat selalu nih tugasnya. Tugas.
Berarti minggu depan Putrin ya, Bu?
Iya nih, waduh, saya bahasa Inggris. Enak aja deh, nggak usah datang. Tidur ntar. Kasih kuis ntar ya. Dikasih kuis, dikasih ini hadiah harusnya ya. Kirim pulsa. Oke Bu Itu, Pak Yanto, makasih ya.
Makasih,
Dadah,
Bu.
Putrin.
Ya, makasih. Saya N ya, Bu Inung ya, saya N
Terima
ya.
kasih, Mas Anto.
Sama Bu.